Okay, so this lesson is going to be about angles still. We're still going to be learning about angles for a couple more days. But we're going to be converting radians and degrees using degrees and minutes, something that you've never learned before. The minutes part is what's new. You're used to degrees. We just learned about radians. But now we're going to convert into minutes. Something that you would use when you're giving your location if you're on a ship. You'd say, I'm so many degrees latitude and so many minutes, and then so many degrees longitude and so many minutes. Something that you probably won't use personally in your life unless you become a ship captain or something. So, the degree symbol we know is a little circle to the right of the angle measure. And it can be found in the calculator. Under the angle button, which I will show you. To get to your degree symbol in the calculator, you have to use the second button, and then you're going to push the apps button, which is the angle. That's where the angle is coming from. You can see it above the apps button, the blue button. And then you can see that the angle option pops up on the screen. The three buttons that we'll be using in this option on the calculator is the first one, which is the degree symbol, the second one, which is the minute symbol, and then the fourth one, which is the DMS button, which we're going to use to convert to degrees, minutes, seconds, rather than going through the long process of actually doing all these conversions. The minutes symbol is a little apostrophe, just one. And it's also found in the calculator. Under angle. DMS stands for degrees, where the D comes from. Minutes, where the M comes from. And seconds, where the S comes from. The symbol for seconds is 2 apostrophes. If you've ever taken time on track trials or something, you have your minutes, your tenths, and then your hundredths of a second. It's kind of like that, with the apostrophe and then 2 apostrophes. But on the Regents, it usually, actually, has only asked about degrees and minutes. It's never asked about seconds, but I wouldn't put it past them to throw it on there one year. So degrees is the circle, minutes is the 1 apostrophe, and seconds is the 2 apostrophes. Okay, so we're going to do a couple examples from radian measure into degrees. And then we're going to take the degrees and change it to degrees and minutes. So, yesterday we did all of our radian measures with the pi along with them. That doesn't necessarily always happen. So, the first one we're going to do is going to be 3 radians. If it doesn't have a pi and it's a radian measure, it will always have the label on it, the units on it, saying that it's a radian measure. So 3 radians, and I want to convert it to degrees first. This, you can't simply plug in a pi that's the same as 180 because we don't have a pi. So we have to use the proportion. And the proportion doesn't change if you're plugging in radians or degrees. So I still have my pi. I still have my 180 because they're the same. And since I know 3 is a radian measure, I'm going to put it above my pi, and I'm going to put an x above my 180. So I'm still going to cross multiply, and I'm going to get 3 times 180 equals pi times x. 3 times 180 gives me 540 equals pi times x. Then I want to divide by pi. So x is equal to 540 divided by pi. You can leave it in terms of pi depending on what the question's asking. Sometimes it will ask for the answer in terms of pi, so you'd leave it like that. If you were to figure out the actual measure of it, you type it in your calculator exactly how you see it, 540 divided by pi. You do not plug in 180 here. That's the only time you plug in 180 for your pi is when you're trying to figure out the degrees of it from a radian measure that has a pi in it. This one does not have a pi in it, so I can't plug in 180. So I want to do 540 divided by pi, which gives me a really ugly decimal, 171.8873385. And it continues on after that. But that's all the calculator will show me. And if you were to have a question that says round to the nearest hundredth of a degree, then I'd round to the nearest hundredth, which is the second spot. So I would have 171.89. But this one, I want to take my degrees, which this is my degrees, and change it into degrees and minutes. And that's actually quite simple. So I'm going to use my calculator and use the degrees, minutes, seconds button. So I'll show you that on the calculator. So you can see in the calculator I multiplied 3 times 180, got my 540. Then took my 540 and divided it by pi, the actual pi button, and got my answer that I have written down. So now I'm going to show you where I would use the DMS button to get into degrees and minutes. Didn't want to do that. So here I used the second, then the angle button, and it brought me to this screen. And I'm going to use choice 4. You can either hit 4 or go down to 4 and hit enter, so it pops up on your screen. But I want the DMS, the degrees, minutes, seconds option. So once I hit enter or 4 to get my DMS to show up, it's automatically going to pull your answer that you had before, and then it will convert it into degrees and minutes along with seconds. And that's exactly how you have to write your answer. It is 171 degrees with the degree symbol and 53 minutes. You never round up the minutes, no matter what the seconds are. You always take the minutes as they are on the calculator. So that would be my answer converted into degrees and minutes. We'll do another example. And this time we'll do 6.35 radians. First I'm going to convert to degrees, like I did last time. And we'll say we'll round to the thousandth. And then I'm going to change to degrees in minutes again. If I could spell. So again, I have to use my proportion. You don't have to write the directions down because we already have it written down on the first one. So first I want to convert to degrees, so I have to use my proportion. So pi equals 180. I know I'm given a radians measure, so I'm going to put 6.35 above my pi and x above my 180. So I'm going to cross multiply, so I get 6.35 times 180 equals pi times x. Multiply my 6.35 times 180, and we get 1,143 equals pi times x. I'm going to get my x by itself, so I'm going to divide by pi. Pi, not x. And then I get x is equal to 1,143 divided by pi. Changing that to a decimal, remember you have to type in the pi button. So I get 363.82819999. And if I round to the nearest thousandth, that's the third spot. So I'd get 363.828 degrees. So I converted to degrees and rounded to the thousandth. Now I want to take my answer that I already found and change it to degrees, minutes, seconds using my calculator. So I'm using my calculator. I typed in 6 times 0.35 times 180 divided by pi, and that's where I'm getting the 363.828199999. Then I use my degrees, minutes, second button. And remember, you're getting that from second, apps, which is your angle button, and then you use choice 4, which is the DMS. So if I change it to degrees and minutes, my answer becomes 363 degrees and 49 minutes. So now I want you to try a couple on your own. So I want you to convert 2 degrees, we'll say round to the 10,000ths this time. You definitely need to know your place values. Then to degrees, minutes, seconds, but I just want the degrees and minutes. I'll give you 2. We'll say 4.2 radians. And there is no abbreviation for radians. And we'll do a -1. Negative 2.5 radians. Do those two and we'll talk about them in class.